Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hopefully, we are audible, loud, and clear. We're inviting you into our webinar where we will be talking about best tools and practices for digital engagement in pharma. Today, with you, myself, Nataliya Andreychuk, CEO and co founder of Viseven, and our lovely guest. Sabine Louët, who is the founder CEO of SciencePOD, will just have an amazing experience of creating scientific engaging content for pharma. Sabine, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Natalia, and thanks for the invitation. So we evolve in the same space. So I'm really delighted to have this opportunity to share our common wisdom to your audience today. So I founded SciencePod exactly 10 years ago. This is a creative content factory. In other words, we take the evidence from the pharmaceutical industry and we turn it into clear, concise, and compelling stories. So we're very much using the narrative around the evidence. And that's what we specialize in. And my background is actually in medical and science publishing. So we've learned from the best.
Oh, how amazing it is! Because today we will be exactly talking about how engaging content can be. And how impactful content can be. And so, what is truly making content engaging and impactful? So, can you share a couple of secrets? So, what do you do actually?
So essentially, one thing to remember is your audience. And typically, pharma are trying to primarily engage with healthcare professional. And guess what? Healthcare professional are short of time all the time. So the rule number one in content is make sure it's short. That's the one thing that you need to remember when you're trying to make an impact. It needs to be short. Then I'd like to walk you a little bit back one step back towards the theory of communication. As you may be aware, there's a scientist called Claude Shannon, who is a US mathematician who really spent a lot of time on establishing, what is the best way to effectively communicate from a sender to a receiver. And there's two underlying principles that you always need to bear in mind when you devise your strategy for engaging with HCPs. And you need to make sure that whatever message you put out there is one, consistent, and two, repeated. And that's where you start thinking, okay, how do I make my message consistent and repeated? Essentially, you need to make sure that you derive your key messages from your evidence and then you express that message in multiple formats through video, through podcasts, through infographic as well as text. So that's the basics.
Exactly. And like I also found like in these times, many of pharma companies are going to commercial, and HCPs and the most of them are thinking that commercial communication of pharma is going farther down the line. It's a lot too much for today's, right? And there is actually the information which is useful, and somehow it is at some point can be lost in all of these promotional noise. So that's why my perspective for that, so we need also to think about how we are tailoring our messaging, how we are working on personalization, we are delivering it through the right channels, we are relevant most of the time. What is your intake on this?
Yeah, that's a very important question. So, quality is the answer to that problem of the noise. I mean, you may be aware that an HCP receives on average 75% more content than they did 10 years ago. 10 years ago. So you can imagine that they are complete your message lost in the noise unless you're very careful to craft a message in a way that's compelling and based on solid evidence to give it the credentials that you need to convince healthcare professional that your solutions, your products are superior to what everyone else is trying to communicate to them. And that's where the creative aspect, the fact that you will use techniques such as storytelling, as I referred to earlier, really matter, because you need to take them by the hand and slowly bring them to the realization that your scientific evidence is key and is far more compelling than what everyone else is trying to communicate.
Exactly, exactly. I'm also thinking about like that we need also to challenge the delivery channels. So how we deliver the content. So this is the crucial. So we need to think like that we are really focusing on the best possible channels. We are not taking too much time of HCP to make sure like to dig the information up for what is needed at the time. So we need to make sure every our communication is supported with the not only physical channel, which is representative of key opinion leader, but also with the emails. Also, there was a webinar or the congress or any other channels, like even a mobile application is available, right? So that we are not locking ourselves into this format or channel trap, so that we have all the needed tools and all the needed technology to unlock our content, so to bring it up and to make sure that we have this connected. So there the content is created, so the medical content after the trials connected to the where it's prepared to be delivered and communicated. So but there is also the important element in this road, so which we are not bringing up very often, is a planning aspect, right? So every communication needs to be prepared, planned upfront, and there is a journey about that. Do you want to tell us some milestones of this journey? Because this is very important. We are very frequently in the noise, we are losing them.
Yeah, so very much so. And I like the fact that you alluded to channels, because channels are part of the planning. You need to always start from the audience, the healthcare professional, put yourself in their shoes, and then you realize that one person likes to listen to information through podcast, and another likes to see visual content because that's what they respond best to. And even if you think from the perspective of the digital natives, you'd see that their prime choice is always video. So once you've got that understanding in place, then you start planning how you will communicate that same message through your multiple channels. And you start to map out which are your priority channels. So typically you have email, you have face-to-face through e-detailer, and then you have increasingly social media such as LinkedIn, but not exclusively. As you know, healthcare professionals are regular people, so they go on Facebook and they go on YouTube and the likes. So the process of mapping those journeys really hinge on two things. You need to identify key dates, such as medical congresses, such as product launches, such as new indication approval. And then you reverse engineer how many pieces of content you need for each of your channels without inundating your audience unnecessarily. So, for instance, let's take the example of a medical congress. You can start turning your 3-day congress into a 6 months gig. 3 months before, you start warming them up by, for instance, deriving summaries from the most recent publication of those KOL speaking at your congress into digital assets, digital text summary, digital infographic summary, and then you share them with healthcare professionals so that they get excited and they register to get more. Then happens the time where you get to the event and you do live coverage and you share those instant coverage within 24 hours. And then after that, Again, through all of your channels, you'll have a debrief in white paper format. You'll have snippets of video recording from the event for your podcast and your YouTube channel. And in the meantime, you also keep creating LinkedIn posts where you can embed, for instance, an infographic that would summarize the key highlights. So it's a very much focus on planning. Content is all about planning, and effective engagement is all about planning the right format and the right asset to be distributed through your channels in an effective manner. So you don't need to do all of the channels. It doesn't need to be always omni-channel, even though that's the gold standard. You could, as long as you optimize each of those channels that you already have, that's more important because you do well what you do already.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. And one of the problem of our customers, pharma companies in that way, is the problem of also it's not a technology problem. There are a lot of technology available. It's a human time and human capacity problem. Whenever we have totally different technology responsible for this exactly beautiful cycle where you plan, you develop, you deliver, and you have this sustainable message through every channel as you just described, we are failing as human being to have an eye in every at every stage, because as we are non-integrated, there are several interfaces in front of us. We are not capable to adopt just another tag to make sure we are aligned. So that's why we have been caring a lot as well about having content creation process close to planning, so having a planner, having it close to the campaigning, so to keep an eye on every channel and to make sure we can orchestrate every campaign, every bit and piece of this journey from the very same place where we have planned. Otherwise, we do have many agencies who are cooperating on this content, because whenever we just mentioned all these channels, it doesn't necessarily mean we by default are owning this content like that, right? So we have to cooperate and we have to introduce so many partners. So we have a briefing mechanism. We need to have it close to brief the companies to make sure we can control this briefing and we can control the narrative and we control cooperation with the other customers and other agencies who are working with us. And that's this beautiful environment will deliver what we want: personalized, tailored, and impactful content, quality content as well. Yeah, that's a great thing. But like we need to optimize all of this stuff because we never have it at hands, all of them together. What do you think about these things, how we optimize the process of content creation for pharma? So what we have to have in hand to make sure this is happening, I mean, optimization.
So I think the point you made just now about centralization of the planning is essential. And having a single platform like yours is really what helps people not try to do too much with too little. Once you centralize your operations around a single platform like yours, what you can have is at a glance, you will see all of your channels and you will see all of your assets that are going to be delivered, not only delivered, but you'll have the analytics that go with it. So that's, centralization is definitely one of the recommended steps so that you don't really try to do too much and make sure you're in control at all time. The other thing that makes digital engagement effective is to make sure that you engage at the right frequency with your audience. You need to map it out in a way that you get to the point, and that you don't inundate them too much. And it's better to do fewer pieces of content, fewer assets that are better quality, because if it's better quality, if it's an interview with a top KOL, for instance, in a video format, you'll have more impact because the message will come from the people who have actually done the clinical research around the particular product. They'll carry a lot more credibility than if you're trying to paraphrase, whatever a clinical study says. So I hope this answers your question.
Exactly. And this is what you are doing with the great success. So you are providing this possibility to be there to create this impactful, right, video content and summarizing the very important medical messages. So this is where we can help. And this means like optimization is not only on the way of the software, it's also on the way of how this multi-vendor environment can coexist, because this is what I want to take us over there, the partnership, the
Mhm.
integration. Centralization is fine, it's okay, but how exactly centralization looks nowadays, it's not like the monopoly of some company over and
No.
dominating over the content format. It's the quite the opposite. It's unlocking and providing the opportunities how you can integrate the needed tools. Look at the others, like they're integrating, like I love to see the other example, like Contentful is integrating with CTP and the others, and us integrating together to bring all this
Mhm.
planning at every step of the content creation together. What is your take on this partnership and the multi-vendor environment?
Yeah, so I think you have a great advantage because you come from an IT background as a company. And therefore, you know that with APIs, you can do magic. And that's the reality. Some vendors out there are trying to impose the one size fits all. I think personally that it's wrong, because the reality is that it doesn't leave that much space for creativity. It doesn't leave that much space for innovative solution that could simply plug into your existing workflows or your existing processes. So the beauty of the approach that you've taken, and we are currently integrating with Viseven as a creative content provider, is that not only your users will be able to avail of your planning capabilities, your reviewing capabilities, but upstream from that, you'll also integrate with people like us who will give you the stories that you need to effectively engage with your customers. So that's essentially the really secret superpower that you have, is that you understand that API-based integration is the way forward, and it gives a lot more diversity of options to the end user, and that means you personalize the offering to the whims of your end users who may choose to work with us or with someone else, but at least the whole system is integrated end to end, and that's really what makes a difference in terms of
That's
convenience.
exactly. That's exactly. And beyond the convenience, I'm also thinking about the world where you or myself or any of our other partners will be reached by our customers and asked, like, can you deliver me the personalized campaign at scale? And there's will be the outcome we will deliver together, like multiple vendors working at the very same goal, delivering this magic. It will be a miracle happening. So then in that regards, we will break this ground rule where like one vendor can deliver all. So like we really can, and we will work on that forward.
And
Taking
also,
oh yeah,
if I may
yeah,
ask,
please,
the
please.
advantage of this approach is that you can cherry pick the best of each specialties. We deliberately focus on creative content delivery, and we're very good at that because we come from that world. We come from science publishing. We understand what it takes, what good content looks like. And that means that your end users will be able to benefit from our expertise, just like they will benefit from someone else's expertise for analytics, or for your own expertise for the analytics, for instance, and for deriving meaningful KPIs to see the impact of that content. And ultimately, a meaningful KPI in our world is a happy healthcare professional that's satisfied with the quality of the content that they've received from a pharma company.
Exactly. So, and in collaboration, we can stretch and accelerate and optimize content production so we can handle all of those channels we are talking about. And this is us cooperating. So that's true. And going further to optimization, I think. So, can we talk a little bit about data? So, what we
Mhm.
exactly measuring? So, because like data is nowadays oil, everyone says that, but we understand like then we are collecting data like interaction, specialty, region, interests. We need to focus on being able to use all those data because a collection of the data today has such a big trend. So everyone collects the data, but tomorrow I don't think we will be able to use even half of it because many of things like we need to think about content gathering. So like how do we have the consent on using all those data, right? What type of data will help us to optimize the process of this creative and valid content delivered? What is your intake on data?
Yeah. So there's a risk here that people will drown in data. And it's no use to anyone to have too many KPIs, because a lot of them will be vanity KPIs. They'll be measuring for the sake of measuring. And then you don't really get that many useful insights from that data. So you can never lose sight of what you're trying to achieve here, which is to ensure that whatever healthcare professional receives your content through whichever channel you've chosen to deliver, they're satisfied that you're not spamming them, you're not sending them information that's irrelevant. You need to make sure that the information is compelling enough to stand out of the crowd of everybody else trying to influence them. So that's a lot of guidelines. So how do you measure that? A lot of the time, the way pharma measure customer satisfaction is through surveys, as to the net promoter score. Did I like that particular campaign or that particular communication? That's all right to an extent, but you can't do it all the time, because otherwise healthcare professional would spend their lives filling in these survey forms. So that's one tool that you can use as a starting point. But I believe that other tools, such as some of the analytics, very carefully selected analytics data, such as things like the amount of time that they spent on the content, if they have the ability to reshare with colleagues, the fact that they are sharing is also a good indication. Now, this is not always built into those customer journey, because the standardized tool do not always allow that. But essentially, what you're trying to do here is to see how many people have looked at your content, but not just that, but also for how long, whether it's meaningful to them, and whether they have interacted with your content more than once, and so on and so forth. So there is a whole new generation of satisfaction orientated data points that need to be collected and invented, for want of a better word. um, and I'm not an expert in data analytics, but I know a satisfied customer when I see one.
Yeah, exactly. And like very rarely, like in our domain, we're talking about customer data platforms. But this is how, like this CDP is abbreviation, but this is how we are going to manage this customer data of the future, right? Because
Mhm.
like you say, we are drowning in this data, so we're never able, to switch to the right KPIs. There are too many technology around us. So, and if
Mhm.
we are talking about this content production at scale, so how we will be scaling, integrating this CDP, customer data platform, with content affinity inside. This is what we need, because we need to understand how this content delivers. So, and this,
Mhm.
like the KPIs, as you say, like they are concrete and they are many. So there are many of
Mhm.
them. So we can focus depending on what is our outcome, desired outcome, the relevant information, quality information we are delivering to the customer must be measured correctly. And for this, we have a technology in place and we have the approach. And that means like we need to understand how this content performs and performs at every channel. Social media is the one, face to face is the another, and the digital communication, emailing, and the others are the channels. So then, and mobile, of course, is the
But you
channel. So
can
that's
even push this concept even further when you think of it. People who are specialists in education, they well understand that some of your audience likes to learn from listening to something, and then other audiences like to learn from seeing. So you could do a segmentation across all of your channels and have in your customer data platform information that this HCP is a visual person and that HCP is someone who likes to listen to things. And eventually that becomes very interesting because you don't bother them with the kind of format that they don't enjoy. You have like a more personalized profiling of your end users purely by trial and error. And one thing that people always underestimate in content is that there is no such thing as an ideal content piece. There's something like a perfect content piece for your particular type of narrowly defined audience. And that takes trial and error. People always ask me, oh, so what's the ideal, what's the perfect format? And I said, well, generally, if you go for the digital native, make sure it's some kind of visual, preferably video, but really, until you've tried and tested it with your audience, with multiple campaigns, multiple form of activities to outreach to these particular narrowly defined audience, you will not know and you will not learn until you've tested it with that particular segment. So there's a lot of trial
exactly.
and error.
Exactly, these trials, and plus behavior. We need to test the behavior, and this is in face to face. So this is the additional aspect, because this behavioristic segmentation is the good asset to have. Then because they this segmentation type delivers us the information which is rarely you can get from the digital channels. So
Yeah.
that's why this is very important to have the combination of those to make sure like we can deliver the right output. And like time just flies, and I cannot be
Sorry.
away from this conversation. So no, not asking this fashionable question about AI and future and digital engagement with the future technology, and any examples, any feeling will be great, because we are all, like, I wouldn't say we are all hungry today for AI talks and for the
Mhm.
technology talks. We are not, but this is already a good tone to have it as a delicious dessert, to have a talk about AI in the end. So
Yes.
why shall we?
So we, as a content company, we've actually started experimenting with AI in 2017, way before. And you have to remember that AI is a collection of technologies. It's not just the large language models. So back then we were working on summarization based on extractive methods which are derived from natural language processing, NLP, for those in the know. And so that's a more mature technology than the large language model, and it doesn't hallucinate. So with NLP, you can already summarize without has hallucination. And so that when you come from a world where clinical studies are, carry a lot of weight, summarizing clinical studies to share with your healthcare professional that are actually time poor is one of the ways you can think about using AI. And we've done this as a pilot with Sanofi a few years ago, whereby we covered we activated the audience for their congress coverage by sharing AI generated summaries of the clinical studies of those people who were the KOL speaking at the event, and we could do that in advance of the event. And the same applies nowadays. We've also experimented with infographic generation with AI. Again, it's a visual summary that's automatically created. But one thing you need to remember: we never let AI loose in the fresh air without having one of our medical editors quality check what it is that we're sharing. So with AI, you get a sense of scale. You can produce way more content with less time. You're still going to have the MLR bottleneck, and you need to brief your MLR team to make sure that they don't overdo it. AI is not as good as a human produced content, but it's good enough to give a flavor, to share some key information, and produce enough content on a very large scale so that you can have content for each of your different segments. So it allows you to scale up your capability to engage with various segments on various topics. And the third type of AI we've experimented with is video summarization. Again, it's based on NLP, and it does help extract the most relevant information, such as information we've been sharing in this webinar could be summarized in video snippet by machine. So it's just to give you an idea about what's possible. But the key message with AI is like, do experiment. It will help you scale up, but never ever do it without having a professional editor by your side to make sure what you're releasing is actually accurate and appropriate for the audience.
The topic is so hot that I am like feeling with my hands, like, taking the hot pot and trying to not to drop it somehow. And you're
Quite.
absolutely right. You are just, brought these three very nice examples, and I do agree with everyone, every particular one. We need to experiment. We need to experiment to figure out where is our AI boundaries and what we want to try. However, I would also bring one of the perspectives, like, before we step into more examples. I have been asked by one customer of ours recently, like, look, we are experimenting with AI models on our own. We are already capable of generating the image, of generating the key message, everything. You have a tool, you have a content offering platform. You spent years on this modular content and whatever. What you have to offer, if we can generate it all, what is your offering? And I will tell you the following. Let us fly in the future, like
Mhm,
30 years in the future. So, and think about these, fake detection screens, or like what makes content relevant and what makes content, like how you can separate in the future fake AI generated content from the human produced content. There will be like the same machines and robots and every, like we have now cybersecurity
mhm.
machines, whatever.
Yes.
There will be the very same machines for AI. And what it gives us today, it gives us today to have a hybrid approach, to have an interface where human and AI can work together. We were thinking, my answer to our customer was like, we can't give away years of modular content creation, and you cannot do that either because you are not confident enough in what AI is producing. So why we are not having a combination? Why do we not combine in this interface, which is tagging, producing modules, making sure all the channels are including, and your AI trial? Let's take them together. Let's make sure human and AI working together. Yes,
Mhm,
there is a produce generated key message. There is, like, based on FAQ, we can produce an agent, an avatar, so which is talking exactly as key opinion leader. But
mhm,
let's put a screen on that let's make sure the human can edit and can work with it.
Yeah,
So
always.
because this is what we agreed, and this is what the compromise is, and even not a compromise, this is a hybrid coexistence and cooperation of human and AI, where human can actually put a screen, can audit, and can give like their way how it will look. Yes, it might be generated an image and the message, but on the top there will be always the human who will run. Okay, I need to run these and these algorithms for this and these messages, but I want them be in that way. So, and that's the interface we all need. So, like this
Yeah, and what
working
you're
together.
saying is basically AI will become commoditized in the future, and we won't even mention it. Everybody will be using it, but we will not mention it in the same way that don't tell you that I use a computer for my job. But yet, 60 years ago, it would have been a novel thing to do. Inexistent at the time, but in other words, what we're saying here is that never forget that there's someone to guide that AI tool. AI is a tool and it is a useful tool. It can do some things very well, but without the critical analysis of the human who's going to guide it and instruct it to do certain tasks, it's not going to go anywhere. I know there's a lot of discussion now around agentic AI where
Yeah,
systems are able to
exactly.
make their own decision. At the moment, it's still in early days, so it can only do so much. But it's true that those systems will become more and more sophisticated,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the people
yeah.
programming them will be responsible to ensure that whatever they do is appropriate. And there's a responsibility lies on the programmers and the people conceptualizing those
Yeah,
agents.
exactly. Exactly. Because even in agentic AI, so one agent can be responsible for the object recognition. Another agent can be responsible for creating out the skin on the top of this recognition. The other might be for delivery, and the other will be scrolling through the fraud detection or whatever. So we are in the early days. So we have bits and pieces like ourselves. We are thinking about this fraud detection of other things which are not functioning in the newly created content. We do have, but one of the important examples with these agents and avatars, imagine like this integration I have mentioned. Imagine you are creating an email like on your own with the modular content, whatever, drag and drop, and you place in this very email the link to your avatar or agent, which is like with the voice and the face of your key opinion leader, and make
Mhm.
sure this is delivered. So this is a great combination for today, because this like 30 years from now, they will be ancient times, right? Of what we are talking, right? But right now, this is something everyone can do. So
Yes,
this is something, yeah.
agree. And to make it more prosaic, we have someone in the audience who remind us quite kindly that things as cumbersome and time consuming as the MLR process can also benefit from AI, because what's an MLR review? It's basically checking the compliance with a set of rules. And guess what? AI tools are very good at checking whatever's in front of them against certain set of rules. So that's why it's been used for in publishing, say for reviewing spelling and all these things for a long time. But in MLR is actually a case in point where AI will hopefully alleviate the bottleneck that every single company is currently facing for the review of their content.
I think yes. I think like thank you, Audrey. That's a great question and great remark. And that's where we will be. Then the AI is a perfect tool for MLR, and that's confidence and trust what we need, and this is
Mhm.
might be achieved by coexistence of human MLR and AI MLR, and there must be a partnership which questions like technicalities must be checked out by AI, and which of them must be still approved by human, because like this biased questions, they are only to be gotten by human, not
Yes.
by
Yes.
machine. So if you want to have the decision, and you need a human bias, and this is what we can't replicate by machines. But whoever knows, with the agent AI might be the case, but not today, still in development. We have the other questions, by the way. So that's we have the question from Anastasia. Do you start with a broad strategy for adopting formats to different therapeutic areas, or go directly into the specific customization? It's a good question. Maybe to
Yeah,
you, Sabine.
there's two angles to this. So, where do you start when you conceptualize your content? Is it about having like the standard accepted format for your company? Or do you start with a bottom-up approach where you do a collection of content for specific use cases without having a top-level guidance? In my experience, and from what I've seen of the trends in the industry, any company currently being an internal content factory has realized very quickly what we realized as well ourselves as an external content factory, that if you don't standardize the content, if you don't use templates for your content, you're going to be lost before you know, because a piece of content in itself, currently, some company takes, I think 90 days is the average estimate for an average piece of content. If you want to reduce the amount of time it takes to actually conceptualize, create, quality check, MLR review a piece of content without standardization, you're going to add to the process as opposed to reduce the amount of time it takes to create a piece of content. So I'm very much in favor of a top-down approach when it comes to format standardization, without limiting the end user so much so that they cannot have a bottom-up specialization, a bottom-up sort of customization for the fine details. So the template will be your guide, your general recipe book, but it doesn't prevent you from being a bit creative and adding a bit of fantasy around the messaging and the layout when you need it for special use cases, especially around patient awareness, where you need to really be a creative.
Sabine, support 100%, because and this is not about even like limitation of creativity. Templatization is a must for reuse and repurpose, because if we are taking the modules, components, content cards, whatever you call them, right? And you can have even AI generated pieces in them, right? But whenever you want to have them across different channels, every channel must have a template, a standard for your brand. It will bring your brand identity to some stability, and it will
Yes,
put your
yes.
marketing at rest and at
Consistency,
peace.
remember?
Consistency, stability, and you will be really consistent with your messaging then. So, and that's not dictating from global to local. It's how you can make the most of the existing materials and the experience, and how you can use even your data efficiently, because then you can learn from your data, from your experience, from every piece of content you received from your customer data platform for your customer. So then you can learn, reuse, repurpose fast, and you
Yes.
can be a winner. So templatization is a must for this process. There is no brain about that. So like I think like every customer of ours, like they are married to templates, and in that way acceleration and optimization is happening. Oh, Audrey with us again. Another key point: templatization and defining evergreen content are essential. they streamline the process and ensure the reusable, compliant content ready for their use. As absolutely true, because evergreen content is the concept we need to be aware of, and this is where this templatization, modular approach, reuse and repurpose, traceability of the content bounds together. So we need to be like cautious about that element of our content journey, and I think whenever we will have the questions about that, we can build a follow-up story on that, because we have 1 minute left on this very webinar, and it's just the time to wrap up and say what we have been talking about today. Because today we had a pleasure with Sabine together to talk about very exciting topics, which were how we make our content impactful, how we tailor it, how we are working with data, what do we have for optimization of the content creation process in mind, how we are intend to use AI, what type of AI we are using, what will be the future, what we are missing and we will build for the future. So at this very point, I want to thank you, our audience, and Sabine, and
Thank you.
please be with us, write to us, and follow us on LinkedIn. We will be answering your questions. And whatever question you will have, we will be able to open it to our next session. Thank you very much, and good luck with your
Th-
impactful content journey. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalia. Great.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.